Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Gloves Off. As you may know, this is the second episode of season 2. I'm your host, Dr. Kalpana, and I'm so glad to have you guys back on the show with us. So this is a new season, zero fluff. And I have to say, this is not just a podcast. I call it my truth portal, so that we really just tell the truth on this show. And that's really, really important to me. And every week I get to have the pleasure of talking to an amazing guest who is just doing something different with their lives and really just living life to the fullest, doing what they love. So I love that. And I only interview people who are doing what they love because otherwise it's not really fun to talk to them. So basically on this podcast, we talk about truth. We talk about wellness, wealth, what's actually working, what's not. And a special thanks to our sponsor, Listening to Smile, who created the show preview that you just saw a little while ago. And I love it because what they do is they use frequency-based music. So it just evokes emotion. And that's something that's so important to me because music in all forms evokes emotion. But now I got to have my own specific frequency of music for my own show, which is something that I love about it. So, and for any of you who have not been here before, I'm just going to take a second and pop up my YouTube channel. So if you have not subscribed, please do subscribe. If you know somebody who would be interested in this, please share the content with them. I would be so grateful. Growing followers every day. And of course, that's very, very important. So anyway, let's get into our conversation today. I mean, we have our special guest, Kristina Driskill. She was a former international opera singer. So that's amazing. I would have loved to have seen her perform on stage. Maybe I'll find some YouTube videos at some point. But now she's done something totally different. And this is just a true testament that you can actually utilize your skills, whatever they are, and repurpose them into something totally different that's more you and more authentically you. So what she does now is she helps high performers stop sabotaging and start soaring. So she's a self-sabotaging and start soaring. That's what she helps people do. And in business, women especially love to sabotage themselves in so many ways. So she holds certifications in business, coaching, money mindset, and social emotional arts from UCLA's integrative medicine program. She's also a Gene Keys guide, helping people decode their energetic blueprint. Now, I don't know that much about Gene Keys, but we're going to have her explain, but I love human design, so it's kind of similar. And then she also uses her conscious reality method, which helps clients perform better, feel more fulfilled, and live life with more ease, flow, and fun. Now, do any of you guys want to actually live your life with ease, flow, and fun? Yeah, sign me up for that. So I can't wait to dive into this conversation with Kristina Driskill. Hello, welcome to Gloves Off. So glad to have you here.
Hi, Dr. Kalpana. Thank you so much for having me today. It is a joy and a pleasure to be here with you.
Oh, I'm so glad. And I mean, you just have so many exciting things that we're going to talk about. And I'm so excited to deep dive into this conversation. So I think I may have to start with the opera. How does one go from the opera to what you're doing now? It's got to be an interesting story that we have to dive into.
It is an interesting story. It begins with me, but it ended up going through the people that I would teach when I became a faculty instructor for opera and foreign language pronunciation. And I did that for almost 10 years. So opera is a industry in a business that is very much based on an idyllic sound. And to some degree, an idyllic aesthetic as well. And so there's a lot of pressure to be right. And there's a lot of emphasis on perfection. So I grew up in a world that was constantly being taught in this right-wrong model. And you were always striving to be right. P.S. Most of the time you were wrong. And so there was this constant pressure to try to be perfect, try to be perfect, try to be perfect. And so while I did well in that industry, the training that I received and the pressure that I put on myself kind of created this love-hate relationship with my own voice, with music, because if it wasn't perfect, if it wasn't, the best possible sound I could make, it felt like a failure. It felt like I hadn't done well enough. And of course, put that out in front of people to where you're subject to everybody's opinions and, critique and everything else, and published in newspapers and, these kinds of things. It creates this kind of pressure system around you. And it wasn't really until I started doing my doctoral research, which was in performance anxiety and coping strategies for singers and performers, that I started to really delve into how the brain works and how this kind of perception of what's going on affects us. And so when I came into teaching sometime after that, I didn't want to teach in that right-wrong model. I really wanted to expand my students' way of working with the voice and working with expression to come from a place of understanding the process over the product. And delighting and finding joy in the process, because they were so focused on the product that they were in their own way for the process, which of course was affecting. It was the greatest irony in the world. I would tell them, the better you try to sing, the less ideal sound you're going to get, because you're going to get in your own way.
It's so true, because you can focus on this perfection. And I've heard singers that hit all the right notes and has no passion and no emotion. And I'm like, whatever. And then I've also heard people who sing with so much emotion. It's raw, it's real. It's probably really not perfect. And I don't care, but I enjoy the second a lot more than the first. Now, I don't know if that really applies for opera, because that's a whole nother level. But when I just think that once you're not enjoying the process, it does affect what comes out of your mouth.
100%. And it also creates, and this is something that, I had to explain to people, and I also have to explain to my clients now, that it's not just, it shows up so clearly with the voice because you're using your body. But it shows up in all kinds of ways for people, that when we put pressure on ourselves to be perfect, to do more, to do it in a certain way, to try to be right, then what we do is create constriction in the body, and we create this kind of micro hesitation where you don't even really know it's happening. And yet it causes you to hold yourself back in little ways. Maybe you don't put that email out there. You don't put that video out there. You don't make that phone call. You second guess yourself. And it starts manifesting in ways from this constriction. So I started seeing this in students. I started saying to myself, I see how this is creating better singers, not just because we're studying the voice, but because we are addressing the entire person. And we are looking beyond the product and really looking at who's creating the product and what's going on there, because that directly affects, what that product's going to be able to do, and the freedom and flexibility somebody has in order to fulfill what their goals are. So before long, students were going through this process with me, and then they started asking me other questions. They started me asking questions about their career, about their relationship with their parents, or their boyfriend or girlfriend, or what they should do with this. And I thought, wow, okay, this is showing me that there's a greater play here. And I felt so called to doing that work, because it brought me so much joy being able to give this kind of information to someone else and then watch them take that information and then just go fly. That to me was just the best.
I have a little bit of a personal story to share with you, and it's funny because it all ties in together. I'm an ear, nose, and throat physician, and I loved the voice. I actually trained with one of the top laryngologists in the world, so in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So he treated all the famous singers. So I would just...
Is it Richard Sassy?
No, Saddleoff, Bob Saddleoff.
Saddleoff. Yeah, okay, Robert Saddleoff.
Yeah, Bob Saddleoff. So we would just sit there and see, while I was training, we just... all these opera singers, because he loved opera, and he was also the conductor of the Philadelphia Orchestra. So just very interesting, because he's a ear, nose, and throat surgeon. And I remember the day that he told me to take a voice lesson with one of his people. I think her name was Rosemary. I don't remember her last name, but so I did that, and I was just so intrigued with the whole process. But anyway, so after that, I was very interested in voice, and I had that as a big part of my practice. So I saw a lot of singers and everything, but I had thyroid cancer. And after my thyroid cancer, I had some weakness of the vocal cords, and I wound up doing singing as a form of therapy, and then also a form of energetic release as well. So it's just interesting how it ties in together. And then she told me, says, you have to be free. And I'm like, how can I be free? And then in that moment, I realized one day there's going to be a moment where I will feel free and my voice will sound different. And you know, I felt that turning point just somewhat recently because my voice is just, I guess, unfiltered. I don't care anymore. And because of that, I'm like, may not be perfect, but it's me.
That sense of freedom is, I think, something that's almost trained out of us. We're all born with it, and we all have it as children. And you can just observe children and see it. They laugh and they scream and they do silly movements and they dance around in the grocery store, and they do these things without that kind of inhibition. And as we grow up, we're taught by parents and teachers and siblings and other children, and society. Don't do that. Don't do this. Don't do it like that. And so slowly, it's kind of that freedom is trained out of us, and we're taught to conform. We're taught to grow into something with a form of discipline, and then taught on top of that, if you're ever going to succeed, you're going to need to be disciplined. So it's almost like there's this message in the background that says freedom equals danger. Freedom equals never getting there to that road of success. And yet we get into these spaces where we're trying now we're adults and now we're grown up and we've been conditioned to kind of like train that freedom out of ourselves. And then we get into a program because something's not working or we don't know how to do this or we're holding ourselves back and we know it. And someone says, well, just let go. Well, just relax. Well, come on, you gotta loosen up. And it's so funny to see how we have to get ourselves back to that place where we understand that freedom is not a danger to us. It's actually just the opposite. It's not understanding the importance of allowing your thoughts and allowing your body and allowing your voice and allowing your energy to experience that kind of freedom, because then you don't ever know where you can go. You're always putting yourself inside that little box saying, I can't. And because of all of the things we see out in the world, right? Like I said, either on social media or putting yourself out there to teach something or running your own business, unconsciously you have that primal instinct of acceptance, approval being on the line.
Oh, yeah.
And anytime we put that on the line, that little voice in our head's going to go, okay, don't do this. Don't do it like that. Make sure you do this. Don't screw this up. Make sure they like you. And it puts that kind of pressure on us to where we lose that freedom if we don't actually go through a process to almost reintroduce it to ourselves.
Well, and here's the irony. When we are in our most easeful states, we actually are the most creative and the most free.
That's right.
And nobody believes me. I mean, I've been telling people, my clients, I've been telling other friends, because all of a sudden I discovered that I put a boundary around how much I will work. And I used to not do that. It was never a boundary around how much I work because I would just work crazy hours as an ENT surgeon. But now I have boundaries and I say, I don't care what I build. It will have to be built within the confine of this many hours per week because I refuse to work more hours a week. Somehow I have started multiple businesses within that confines and I have not increased my workload. And I do everything in an easeful way. And people are like, how you get all that done? I'm like, I don't know. Just joyful and easeful. And I feel like time actually bends. I feel like I have way more time in a day because I'm not stressed. I'm easeful. I'm not saying I never get stressed, but I would say at least 85% of the time I stay in that joyful state. And I notice that things go better and better for me. So I want you to talk about that because that's one of your tenets of what you really are helping people with.
Sure. It's the way that energy works. So energy loves flow. And anytime we put pressure on something, we think hard about it. We kind of try to force ourselves to do things. we actually create that kind of constriction. And so while you're still exerting a lot of energy, you're still trying to do a lot of stuff, you're actually not doing it in the most efficient state. So we have this, again, we've been conditioned to believe if we relax, that equals lazy. If we, if we do it in ease, then we can't get as much done. But it's exactly the opposite because of what you mentioned, right? We have different regions of the brain responsible for different things. And this is a very basic way of saying it. I know it's much more complex than this, but we have certain regions of the brain that deal with our analytical parts and certain regions of the brain that deal with our creative parts. We have certain regions of the brain that activate when we are having fear-based responses. We have certain regions of the brain that react when we have love-based responses. And the creativity is all over on that side. Again, being very basic, but it's all dominated by those love-based parts of the brain. So when you are being hard on yourself, when you are stressed out, when you are forcing yourself, when you are putting yourself under pressure, when you have that kind of make it or break it kind of attitude toward yourself, you're actually on the sides of the brain, the parts of the brain that are not going to be open to creativity because it's coming from a survivor place. It's coming from a place that says, I've got to, I have to, I need to. And your brain's going like, we ain't got time for creativity. We're in survival mode. And so it's over here working so hard to try to make things happen, so to speak, when if we just relax and we just open up into ourselves, your creativity goes wide open. All of a sudden we have creative solutions to things. All of a sudden we do things in that flow state. So it's much more easy to write that email, make that phone call, come up with those project ideas, do that outline, put on a show, whatever it is. Because it's coming from those places that allow those types of activity to be optimal. And it's not that we don't need those analytical sides and parts of our brain. We absolutely do. But we need to know when to use which one and when to open up into that creative state and when to allow them to work together as opposed to only push, drive, more is more. Success comes from, quote unquote, working hard, which I don't believe at all anymore. I grew up in that model. The harder you work, the more successful you will be. I'm very much in the same line with how you are now. When you start to put boundaries around things for your own wellness and well-being, you have to start prioritizing. You can't do all the things anymore. So all of a sudden you start doing the important work instead of just the busy work. And you create a lifestyle for yourself that is much more in alignment with what you said you would do once you're successful.
Yeah. Well, the reality is when you put those boundaries up, you all of a sudden remove anything that doesn't bring you joy, remove anything that isn't really beneficial to where you're trying to go. You may remove people out of your life that are not in synergy. It becomes very lean. My life has become very lean, but it's better than it ever was. I don't want all the fluff anyway. So it works perfectly fine for me. So I think that's really where it's at, getting back to that freedom, feeling free, getting back into that creative flow. And for me, I just find that I'm not an operations person. I can do operations, but I just hire people now to do all the operations because I don't enjoy it. And I'm at a point where I just want to do all the creative stuff because that's what I enjoy. And it's a good place to be.
It all comes down to it's the time and money game, right? Do you want to spend your time, your most valuable asset? Do you want to spend your time learning how to do that thing, doing that thing yourself? Or would you rather spend some of your money delegating that to someone else so that your time can be used for something else? And it just depends on what your time is worth to you. I mean, it's a personal decision. But I think most people kind of go into that, well, I'm going to run a business. I'm going to be successful. I have to do all the things. Yeah. I'm going to have to do all this stuff instead of sitting down with themselves as you did, as I did, and having that conversation with yourself to say, wait a minute.
Yeah.
How do I want to spend this precious time that I have?
Well, I think that kind of ties us into our saboteurs that are lurking in the background, sabotaging us. So, because I've seen this in so many of my clients, I present them with options to make more revenue in a faster way, but they don't want that. Some people just don't want that. They want to continue toiling and working so hard because I realized after a while, they don't feel like they're actually doing anything if they're not doing, because they're just conditioned to do it that way. So if they're not doing that, they don't feel right with themselves. And then I understood that I had to choose different types of clients. So I actually started to modify who I was going to serve anymore, because I realized that this was a consistent problem. Tends to be a bigger problem with startups within my realm. And that's why I said, okay, no more startups. I actually had to make the decision, put the boundary around it. And now I work with entrepreneurs that are more seasoned. Now they understand that time and money evaluation in a different way than startups do, because startup people think that their time is worth nothing. They have to do everything. And that's just not the mindset I'm in. So anyway, let's talk about the common saboteurs that affect women in general.
Yeah, you send the startup people to me, because this is exactly where this kind of stuff kind of comes in so hot and heavy, and what you were hearing from people so much, right? That we have these saboteurs, these inner voices.
Mm-hmm.
We all have them. They all affect us in different ways. But as far as, breaking them down into archetypes, an organization called Positive Intelligence, run by Shirzad Shamin, along with research done in cognitive behavioral therapy and performance science and neuropsychology and positive psychology, developed a body of research that said there's basically only 10 ways that you're going to sabotage yourself. It's going to be one of these 10 archetypes. And so once you know that, and once you start to identify these within yourself and see how they're showing up, you start to realize it's not you. It's them. It's not you. We developed these inner voices as a way to cope with things as children, usually, and growing up as children, and they came from strengths. So one of the biggest ones, I'll tell you this, the big overall arching one is called the judge. We all have a judge, right? We have an inner judge, and it's a judge that judges ourselves, it judges others, it judges circumstances. And this voice is constantly running in the background. That doesn't look good on you. You shouldn't do that. You did it like that? Oh, wow. Well, you could never do it like that. Well, if you're not doing stuff, you must not be working hard enough. You must not be really serious about running a business. Constant in our heads, right? So this voice can be very heavy, and it can cause these other, what we call accomplice saboteurs, to be activated. So once the judge comes in there, then we start getting these accomplice saboteurs. One of the biggest ones for anyone trying to grow something of their own, whether you're an entrepreneur or a creator, business owner, whatever you're trying to do for yourself, is the one we call hyperachiever. So the hyperachiever will come in there and try to tell you more is more always. And so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much you've done. You could be doing more, right? And in my brain, my saboteurs started to develop characters, right? Because I guess because of my background, perhaps, in performance and being on stage, I started to see them in a certain light, and they had a certain look to them. And a certain feel, and they said certain things, and they sounded a certain way, and they wore certain things. And I call my hyperachiever Simon. He shows up as masculine. His name stands for success is my only need. And he kind of looks like a Slavic gym coach, because that's what he sounds like in my head. So he's always saying, Kris, come on, we need to be doing more work. You don't have time to sit down right now. Like we only did, come on, like show me what you did today. I don't even see anything. Where is it? And so I'm like, I used to hear this, all the time, and think like, oh my God, like you're right. Like I should get back on my computer, right? Because I thought it was me. I thought it was me saying, you haven't done enough. You're not working hard enough. You're never going to have a successful business. But no, it wasn't me. It was Simon. Why are you sleeping? Come on. You know the saying, we sleep when we're dead. Let's go. That kind of like constantly like, okay, but now I see it. So now I can be like, Simon, like, relax, man. Like, it's cool. Like, we've done plenty of stuff today. Mm-hmm. We've done wonderful things. So, and you can't argue with them. You have to start realizing that you're in charge. They're not in charge. But for most people, they're running the show, right? Mm-hmm. So we have hyperachiever that comes in, right? Then we have one of my all-time. You have to get in line behind me. when it comes to this one. My saboteur, I call PETA. Her name is PETA, and PETA is the stickler. And her name stands for perfection is the answer.
Oh, I was going to say, is she a pain in the ass?
She's also a pain in the ass. So she's always like, yeah, if you could just like move that over there, if like you could just put that there. Like she wastes so much time needing everything to be just right, just so. Like, well, how can I possibly work in this office? The desk is disgusting. I need to clean this. I'm like, okay, well, that was not the priority today. You said you wanted to contact people, but PETA's going to like avoid contacting people because everything's just not in the perfect place. Everything's not done just right. She'll avoid putting content out because it's not just perfect. It doesn't, like the slides aren't perfect or whatever it is. So there's a lot of time wasted. There's a lot of deflated feeling because in PETA's eyes, you need to be perfect. And how often are we actually perfect? Not very often. So it's really, really hard to live up to PETA's standard because it's an illusion. So that voice constantly being like, well, you didn't, just constantly pushing you in that kind of way. So we have the stickler that'll show up a lot. We have hyperachievers show up a lot. Controller will show up a lot. My controller's name is Carol. She wears a t-shirt that says Mama Bear. And her name stands for controls all realms of life. So she's a finger pointer. Y'all need to be doing this. Don't do that. You can't do that like that. And what happens with our controller is we get very either agitated or anxious when things are not going our way. So when you would tell people, you could be doubling your income if you could do that. If they are not feeling like they're in control of that, they're like, can't do that because, I can't do that. And you probably heard that time and time again. People saying, I can't because. And that's what'll come up from controller.
Is there another saboteur that doesn't feel like it's worthy of having more money with ease?
Oh.
Because I think that's the one we come across when I'm working with a lot of these startups.
Well, and
I'm going to send them all to you because I don't know how to deal with that.
Yes, please, because it's like I said, that is so in my wheelhouse of understanding. Like, you know who that is? It's not you. It's that voice that said, if you're doing this the easy way, like I learned that hard work equals success. So if you're not working hard, there's no way you could possibly be successful. And so the judge can come and be like, you don't seem like you're working very hard, right? Hypervigilant. My hypervigilant saboteur, one of my favorites to play, her name is Lois. Lois always says, well, how can we ever succeed if we're not working that hard? Like it's constant, like drama and like vigilance to the max, like always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Well, if I do it like that, probably no one's going to follow me. I'm never going to have any clients. I can't, everyone's going to think I'm an idiot and just like so much high strung tension, and you can't possibly be in ease and flow. So how could you make money if Lois is running your show? How could you do it easily if Lois is running your show? You can't, right? Mm-hmm. So we've got, and like I said, there's all these combos for people. So it's usually never just one. It's this one reacting off of this one, reacting off of this one. But next thing you know, you feel frozen.
Well, it's so funny because once you look at them like that with this kind of persona and a personality and an archetype, it's funny how it just makes it funny and enjoyable. And now you could look at it from a place of, oh my God, that's just hilarious. So
that's it.
Show? Oh, I get it now. And it makes
lightness.
Yeah, it brings it lightness. It makes it less personal and less about us, We don't feel like we're pointing fingers right at ourselves. So I think there's so many beautiful things that come out of that. So, and then that ties a little bit into your upcoming podcast, right? So we can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So in doing this work and starting to see these characters, it's exactly how you described it. It was so easy to start seeing these outside of myself. And the other one, another one that can show up in the situation that you mentioned is victim, of course, right? Mm-hmm. The universal archetype of victim, and how strongly that shows up and how strongly any of these saboteurs show up can be based on the conditions. It can be based on circumstances. I have so many people say to myself, oh, I'm never a victim. No, I don't feel sorry for myself ever. I never do stuff like that, and then when we start talking about it, they start realizing, oh, Oh, I didn't realize I did that. I didn't realize that in my tough girl persona, I tell everybody everything that ever happened to me that was wrong, right? Because I want to get it all out there. So if they're going to accept me, they're going to have all the details, or, so that you don't think that I think I'm all that. So I'm going to give you all my victim cards, so that know that I don't think and it's just this game that we play in our heads. It's incredible. So once I started developing these characters, and start seeing them outside of myself, I got this wild epiphany of an idea. And there were all these very interesting little synchronistic moments, right? Like, I don't listen to true crime podcasts, but Amazon, music was like, which true crime podcast do you want to listen to today, Kris? I'm like, what? I don't know. I don't listen to those. And then like something would come on TV and then something else. And I got this epiphany. I said, oh my gosh, what if I created a podcast, a show based on these saboteur characters where entrepreneurs and creators and business owners were solving crimes of the mind. And these saboteurs were the suspects. And so we're gonna find out what's going on in our mind. What's a stressor? What's a work or life stressor that's holding us back in some way? And we're gonna go through it and solve it in the style of true crime. So Saboteurs Slinking in the Shadows was born from this idea. And it's an edutainment style because, like I said, when you start to see these characters, when you start to see them in this way, it just brings so much lightness to a subject that otherwise can be so heavy. Like feeling like we're bringing ourselves down, holding ourselves back, beating ourselves up is not something that people usually feel good about. And it can feel like it's causing so much weight for you. So when we take that weight off and we lighten it up and we realize, hey, it's not you. You're an amazing, incredible, wonderful being of light. Like, this isn't you. These are things, that you invented, as we all did, as a way of coping and protecting yourself. It's totally okay, but you don't have to let them run your show anymore. It allows us to kind of break through those things in a way that feels, as you said, it feels easier. It feels like it could get you back into flow much more quickly. And it's fun. I mean, I don't think anybody, I ask this question, all the time as a joke. I say, like, who wants to sign? I have a program where you can feel stressed out, really anxious all the time, really feel like you're suffering inside, angry, jealous. If you sign up, I'll teach you how to stay in that state all the time. Who would like to be in my program? And unbelievably, to this day, no one has signed up. Like, no one has said, yes, I would love to be in that program. I would love to be stressed out and feel the pressure all the time. I would love for life to be painful and full of suffering. Like, no one signs up for that program, which tells you are not actively choosing that. So if that's the way you're feeling, it is a choice.
100%. And I have an idea. I thought, what if we bring those saboteurs to Gloves Off and we beat them up?
Well, good news and bad news. It sounds like a great idea. It sounds like a great idea if we just put them in. And people say it to me all the time. Yeah, like I tell them at the end of the podcast, I'm like, here's the place. Okay, we found out who the guilty party was. You know how the judicial system works. It's time for punishment. And everyone goes, yeah, let's get them. And I say, okay, I know. That's what we normally think we would do. We'll beat them up. We'll push them down. But they're part of you. So, what just happened? No. Oh no. By beating them up, you're actually beating yourself up, which means you're actually fueling the negative energy of the saboteurs and making them stronger. So it's exactly the opposite of what we want to do. We think we want to beat them up, push them down, put them in their place, yell back at them. But what they need, and we all know this, that, we've all heard the phrase, hurt people.
True.
Right? And so when our saboteurs are giving us a hard time, trying to push us, criticizing us, trying to control us in that particular way, what they need more than anything is love. Because what they're telling us is, I don't feel safe right now. We don't think about that like that. We don't think about being critical or angry or rude or, self-deprecating as feeling unsafe. But that's exactly why we do it. It comes from a feeling of not being safe. So anytime you hear, and this is why I kind of think about it now, either toward myself or hearing it out in the world, we hear it a lot on TV, right? We hear it a lot on social media. When you hear a person in that state being nasty, being critical, putting someone down, they might as well, to me, in the way I see it now, you might as well be holding a big sign over your head saying, I feel unsafe right now. Because that's what that is. Now, I'm not saying that we condone the behavior. We're not condoning the behavior, but we're saying underneath that not so great behavior is a scared little child. Saying, I don't feel safe right now. And underneath every single one of our saboteurs is that little child self of ours saying, I don't feel safe right now. So I need to do this. I need to make you do this. I need to tell you that. And it doesn't necessarily come from negative experiences. It could. But it could also come from positive experiences. For example, my hyperachiever did not come from not getting love or feeling like I needed to do things to prove my worth to my parents or something like that. It came from just the opposite. Doing things well came easy for me as a child. And so I was showered with praise. Teachers, oh, you're so wonderful. Oh, you're doing so many wonderful things. Adults, my parents, all these authority figures kept telling me how good I was and how what I was doing was so good. So my little child brain said, oh, okay, if I do a bunch of things well, and that is giving me approval and acceptance and love, then doing even more of those things should secure my safety, right? So then I would just do more and get more praise. And how do you do all those things? And so that constant, thinking in my brain, that equals success. That equals doing a good job. That equals a love and approval and acceptance. But no one ever says, hey, how are you feeling while you're doing all that stuff?
Right.
And that's why so many people end up burning out, getting depressed, getting anxiety, because they come into this thing thinking, if I do more, I'm going to be more successful, or I'm going to achieve success, or people will approve. And no one ever stops to say, well, what does it feel like when you're on that track? And that stuff starts to build and grow. So it's coming from a well-meaning place, but it's being done in a way that's very destructive to us. And that's why they are saboteurs. That's why we are self-sabotaging, oftentimes unknowingly.
So when is your podcast going to be released?
Oh, I'm hoping, drum roll. I'm hoping it's going to be this fall, hoping mid-October to November. It's quite an extensive process because of the way I see it in my head. Think like The Office meets, Unsolved Mysteries and Dateline.
Yeah, it takes some time.
So there'll be a lot of, we have a good talk like this, and then it gets chopped up and put into this narrative of, going through the mystery and solving the mystery and interviewing the saboteurs and seeing, who showed up and seeing who ends up in the lineup. So it's going to be done in a very fresh, fun way.
I can't wait to be a part of this because I'll be on.
I can't wait. It's going to be fun.
I'll post it on my YouTube channel for when I'm doing it. I'm excited. I can't wait to meet my saboteurs and see what's going on.
we are. You know what? The biggest comment I get from the people who have been through the process of us going through and solving that crime of the mind is that it was fun. They didn't think it would be fun. There's two things that normally come. Number one, it was a fun way of doing that. And number two, I had to really address some stuff. I saw some stuff that I hadn't seen before.
So where can they view the podcast and everything?
This is going to be predominantly visual based. You're going to want to see it. So there will be a YouTube channel for this. It's called Saboteurs Slinking in the Shadows. And so it's not up there yet, but once the preview goes up, then the YouTube channel will go up, and that'll be, like I said, you're going to want to see it. It'll be on podcast, streaming on podcast where you can listen as well. But
will there be information on your website or anything?
Yes. You'll be able to go to my website, and there's actually a place on my website right now where if you want to be notified when it goes up, you can put your name on that.
Can you tell me your website? I had it in here and I think I accidentally forgot to save it. So I'm
Oh,
going to
totally
put
okay.
it.
It's just my name, just as you see it there on the screen, krisdriskill.com. If you're listening, it's all with K's. It's an unusual spelling. But it's just my name, krisdriskill.com, and you'll see right there, you'll see information about the podcast right there on my
Perfect.
site.
Easy peasy. I'm going to actually put that up right now so we can show everyone. Did I get it right?
Yeah.
Okay. I put it in there and then all of a sudden it was gone. I was like, what happened to it? So
No, you
that
got
way
it.
you can find this when she's I think I got to go on the wait list too because I cannot wait to watch this. And then maybe we can get a little bit into the gene keys. Tell us a little bit about how that affected your journey.
Yeah, Gene Keys was something that I stumbled on, kind of by accident. I had been through this money archetypes coaching and certification, which made a profound shift for me as far as my relationship with money. And what I didn't realize at the time that I found out through that work, and now that I work with other people on now, is that how you do money is how you do everything. So how you show up with your money, will show up in every single area of your life.
Well,
And
give us an example of that because I mean that's an intriguing concept, and I know what you mean, but I want everybody else to understand what that
Sure.
means.
So one of my favorite little games to play with people when I do like a workshop or something like this is to have them take out their wallet and to tell me about their wallet. Mm-hmm. So I'll have somebody take out their wallet and be like, no, it's just a wallet. I don't know. I didn't like pick out anything fancy or anything. And so it's kind of like, I'm like, well, tell me about it. Well, it's kind of frayed here on the corners and like zipper doesn't work very well. And, it's kind of, it's a little, I don't know. I spilled something on it. I think, I don't know. And so from an example like that, I will tell someone, okay, so there's a really good chance probably that you don't pay attention to your money very much. You don't check your bank account very often. You don't typically know where your money goes. There's not a respect relationship with your money. Or I'll have someone say,
I want to go get my wallet and have you evaluate me.
It's so much fun. It's actually so much fun. I've had somebody tell me like, oh my God, my wallet. Okay. So I totally found this wallet on sale. It's a fantastic, then I put like these little embellishments on it and I made it like fantastic. And I just love it so much. And I just, I like to make things like better than when I first got them. I said, okay, so that tells me that you usually probably pick up people in relationships that you feel like are projects. And you need to fix them in some way to make them better. You could just see people's face. They just.
Oh my God. Okay. So everybody, I'm going to actually run and go get my wallet. You're going to just kind of hold down the fort here and talk about something for 2 minutes before I come back. Okay.
You got it. So while Dr. Kalpana is going and getting her wallet so we can play this game. I will tell you just a little bit about money mindset. I know she wanted to get into gene keys, but since we're talking about the subject, I would tell you what a profound shift it made for me based on, just like we talked about the saboteurs being archetypes of the ways that we operate in the world. Money archetypes will tell us how we operate when it comes in relationship to money. And that's when, like I said, we can see it in all these different areas of life. So because our wallet is connected, it's the holder, the container of our money things. That's why we can play this game with the wallet. So Dr. Kalpana is back. So show me your wallet.
Here's the wallet.
Okay. And now just tell me about it.
So I bought it because I love the way it feels. The leather is so soft. And then I love the way that it opens up because it just kind of, snaps and it's small. I had another wallet before and it was just big. So, and I've gone to smaller purses now. So I like the way that it opens up. I like the way that it's a little asymmetric. It's got a little style here, and I love the neutral colors. And I love the way, all my things just kind of fit in there. I've got my credit cards organized here, my driver's license, and then, got a little change purse and, for cash, and everything is just super organized. So that's why I bought it.
Right. So what that tells me is that you like your life to be a certain way. You want it to look a certain way. You want it to feel a certain way. You want things to be in their place. That's probably when it feels best to you. There's probably a mix of order and creativity and like self-expression in your like in your aesthetic, in your place. You probably are attracted to people who have it together. And who also can resonate with having that kind of lifestyle for themselves. It probably drives you nuts. At least, you know, in your own personal space, if somebody messes up your space or leaves stuff around in your space because you like to have stuff where it belongs. All the credit cards are in the right place. So it's going to be the same thing. I need this over here. I want that. There's a design in here and I need it to be out there. And that's probably when it feels the best to you. And when it doesn't feel like that, you probably feel drawn to shifting it in some way. Like, okay, that can't be like that. We need to shift this. We need to make this. Could you please move that to there? So kind of, if it's you're doing, you know, you may drop what you're doing and make sure it looks like that it's somebody else is doing. You know, you may find a very kind way, if you can, to approach it to say, okay, that's a hard no. And we're not going to have it like that.
That is exactly me. So who knew that you could tell so much about a person's personality by their wallet? That's why I had to go get it. I was like, I got to know. Now I got to see.
You know, that wallet also is really in alignment with you talking about prioritizing things in your life, because you said, well, I used to have big stuff and I used to have all this stuff, but I've really pared down now and I've really made things small and I like them being small and really kind of more simplistic now, which goes and you can see how those, I would guess that if you looked at the timeline, that those two things probably happened very similarly. So the more you were like, I am going to keep my priorities, I'm going to set boundaries, I'm going to do this, you probably also shifted the size of your wallet, the size of your purse, the size of the stuff you're carrying around at a very similar time. And you can see how they start to correlate with one another. Like you just like, nope, just the essentials in here.
That is so fun. I'm so glad we did that. And it's spot on, every single bit of it. I used to, you know, have these big homes and, you know, all these extra things and things that didn't, I mean, they mattered to me then, but now my life is in a much more simplistic way, but it's more joyful and it's more free. So,
and you also clearly take care of yourself. You could see the wallet is very well taken care of. It's very important to you how it feels, which means it's going to be very important to you how you feel. It's going to be important to you how you make others feel, that your relationships and feeling in the relationship is important to you. You know, so it just shows you that like there's care that's going to be put into different parts of your life.
Well, and I wanted a smaller wallet for a very long time. So, you know, I did not buy it until I found the right one. So I might have been looking for a year for a smaller wallet. I bought something small on Amazon just so that it would fit in my smaller purses, but I knew I'd find something later eventually that was better. And literally I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks after I bought the Amazon one for, $15 or something, I was like, I just need a small wallet. I found this one.
It's interesting also that you valued its imperfect aesthetic, that it was a little asymmetrical, which really goes in alignment with you deciding, hey, life doesn't have to be perfect. It needs to be true and real. And I want to be authentic and I want to be real and I want to speak truth, not perfection, truth. And lo and behold, you pick a piece that doesn't say it's absolutely square and perfect. It shows a little different here and a little different there.
This edge comes out.
You appreciated that when and you started to appreciate that in yourself.
So true. And then I like all these things too. You know, I don't know what that says about me, but it was like, it has just a little bit of, a little bit sparkle to it where it's not just boring, but it's still very tasteful. And I feel like it goes with every purse. So it's very practical.
Yeah. Well, and that tells you that probably the things that you pick to do for yourself or with others, need to have some form of fun to them. You want to enjoy your life, but not in a way that's overly extravagant, not in a way that's really way out there. There's a practicality to it, but not so much to a point to where you're putting it into a tight, constricted box. There's still lots of sparkle to what you choose to do, but it's also practical.
That's really cool. Now I'm going to be asking everybody to see their wallet. I'm going to really pay attention to everybody's wallet.
Let me see your wallet. Let me see it.
As they pull out their wallet from their purse, I'm like, Okay, excuse me. Can I just see that for a second? I
And
want
it's interesting to hear somebody else describe it too, because that's actually a really big part of it. Like when you see people with like receipts all stuffed in there or frayed little parts, or when they talk about like, oh yeah, I really need to get a new one, you will notice, oh yeah, I really need to, shows up in a lot of other parts of life as
to.
well.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's so true. Wow, how interesting. Well, I'm so grateful for that little conversation. That was so fun. So, any other things that you want to share with us as we kind of wrap up today's episode?
Well, I would tell you that is, we will just touch on this because I know we don't have time to get into it now because we went into the money mindset world, which is
Oh,
so much
sorry.
fun.
I asked you about Gene Keys, then I got all excited and I had to go get my
Well,
wallet.
it is one of 5 archetypal systems that I put together in the work that I do. So when I do this conscious reality method work, when I do this, I found through discovering through my own work on myself first, the money mindset work, the branding archetypes, right? And your own personal brand, the gene key system, and really seeing how through, it's a combination. If you're not familiar with gene key system, human design is an element of influence, but also systems like astrology and I Ching and other systems kind of combined in that way. And it's just fascinating to see, how something that was in a fixed system, right? Based on your birth chart, something in a fixed system also went together so well with something like branding archetypes and money mindset archetypes, which are from your own self-perception and doing an assessment from your own perception. So, and then there's the saboteurs from the positive intelligence system, that I use as well. So when we put all these together, it gives you like a map of yourself. It's what I call an authentic self-centric map that really kind of gives you a picture of what's going on for awareness. And I would say that above anything else that we could do for ourselves when it comes to trying to be successful, trying to grow the life that we want to grow, be the person that we want to be, step into authenticity, is awareness. You cannot shift what you are unaware of. So taking the time to become aware and to sit with yourself and to have those inner conversations, whether you do that by yourself or you do that with a coach or consultant, like me or Dr. Kalpana, or whoever is the best match for you, that is where you are opening the gift to yourself. That is where you are opening the door to opportunity. Otherwise, you're doing a lot of work, but you're not necessarily creating the foundation for that work.
Yeah, so true. So true. Well, you have been so insightful. I mean, it was just such a great conversation. We talked about opera, we talked about wallets, money mindset, gene keys. I mean, we really packed a lot into an hour of talking here, which is great. So everybody keep an eye out for Kris's podcast. Find out about it on our website. You could get on the wait list. So don't forget to do that, because then you might be able to identify your own saboteurs. Take a really close look at your wallet and see what that tells you about yourself.
Like I said, it's a fun way. These are fun ways for us to really learn deep things about ourselves. It doesn't have to be heavy work. It can be absolutely joyful work.
Yeah, and if we look at all of life that way and just think everything should be joyful, or at least if it can't be, try to find a way to make it joyful, really, because life is really too short to not be joyful as much as possible. I've spent too much time just buried in the woods about, just getting things done. And I can tell you, I've lived it both ways, and this is way more enjoyable.
If you are waiting to get to a certain level of something, whatever it is, that career, that degree, that amount of money in the bank, that salary, that job position, that whatever, so that you can feel whatever it is you want to feel, joy, ease, flow, fun, fulfillment. I'm going to tell you right now, I know, Dr. Kalpana knows, and you already know, if this has been a part of your life as well, that it doesn't come just because you achieve things. It doesn't work that way. So would you rather wait, or would you rather experience those things right now, right in the midst of all that you are trying to grow and do for yourself. You can have both. You do not need to wait. And if you're not experiencing it now, there's a really good chance that no matter what you achieve, you're not going to find it later.
So true. Oh, I think that's the perfect thing to end on. That's a beautiful quote. I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us and and sharing all your wisdom with us. And I cannot wait to be a guest on your podcast, and I cannot wait to watch it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It is my honor and pleasure. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you to everybody for watching and listening.
Yes. Thank you so much, Kris. You have a wonderful day. So great seeing you again.
Thank you. Good to see you too. Thank you.
Bye. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know I did. I got a full assessment of my money blueprint, which was awesome. But I'm excited. Next week, we're going to be talking with Anna Librand. We're actually going to get into a conversation about visionaries and operations people, because the reality is a lot of us who are entrepreneurs, many of us are visionaries, but we get really stuck in the operations role. And that can burn us out and make us really, really miserable. So how do you find the right operations person if you're a visionary? Or if you're more of an operations person, how do you find the right visionary to work with? So we're going to deep dive into that conversation next week on another episode of Gloves Off. I'm so excited that you guys were able to join us. I hope you're enjoying the new season. I feel like it's much more me than the last season was. Hopefully you guys can see that. And you know what? Feel free to comment on my YouTube channel. I'd love to hear anything else you'd rather see. And just a special shout out to the sponsor for this week's episode is Get Healthy USA. She also sponsored our last episode for last week. And then we will see you next week for another episode of Gloves Off.